What is the oldest known baseball card in existence? This is my first Attic Find Friday that's a two-parter, and I'm going to give you one of the oldest ever known. Hey, it's Mike. Thanks for tuning back in. Today is Friday, which means it is Attic Find Friday, and I've never done a two-parter, and this may actually be a three-parter of sorts. And a little out of order here, but that's okay, and I will allude to one of them. This one happened in 2013. I got most of my details from an ESPN article, which is unusual. I usually try to go more local to where the items are, but I went to the Portland Press-Herald out of Portland, Maine. I went to the Bangor Daily News, and those both are great sources, but ESPN had more details. And so I'm going to jump right in here. Maine is not known for its card collecting, the vintage of card collecting, because there isn't a history of teams here in Maine. But we have a great story here. There's a small town called Baileyville on the border of Maine and Canada, far, far east. And it's right near St. Stephen, Canada, which, just off topic here, when I was in college, the drinking age in Canada was 19. So we would drive the hour from my college into Canada, and you could cross the border. This was pre 9/11. You could cross the border, you just go up to the border guards and say, hey, I'm going to visit family. They'd say, okay, zoop, drive right through. And you could go and drink legally at age 19 and 20. And there was a little bar called Dooley's where you could play pool and drink. Great memories, right near Baileyville. But anyway, back to the story. Baileyville, Maine, there was a man, anonymous man, who was antiquing at a yard sale. And he found a photo album, and he leafed through it and thought, this looks good. He got that and some old Coca-Cola bottles and 2 oak chairs. He paid less than $100 for all of these things. He gets them home, and he is leafing through the album, and he finds this, what appears to be a baseball card. Very, very, very old. And he remembers the headline from 2012, just the year before this took place, that Saco River Auction House out of Biddeford, Maine, had sold a very, very old, one of the first known baseball cards the year before. So he contacted them. Ultimately, he mailed them this card for them to do some research on. And now you might wonder, why, if they're both in Maine, why is he mailing it to them? Well, Biddeford, Maine is down in southern Maine. Baileyville is northeast of that, and it's probably, I'm guessing here, and I'll put it up on the screen when I'm editing, I'm guessing it's about a 5-hour drive. It's not close to each other. Maine is a massive state. So he mails it to Saco River Auction Company, and Troy Thibodeau, I think, is the owner of Saco River Auction Company out of Biddeford. They start researching this card, and they discover that it is the first known baseball card in existence at that time. Now, I'm going to hint that there is an earlier one that's coming up on an Attic Find Friday, probably next week, that was discovered after this one. So this, at the time in 2013, is the earliest known baseball card. It's from 1865, and it is from the Brooklyn Atlantics. Brooklyn Atlantics was the first baseball champion, the first dynasty in baseball. They were an amateur team that formed in 1855. They were a founding member of the National Association of Baseball Players. In 1859, they went 11-1, and they were the first baseball champions. 12 games on the schedule back then. I don't think there were any 60 home run players back then or 60 stolen base players in 12 games. In 1865, they absolutely dominated. They went 18-0 that year, and they were cocky. They printed out a photograph of their 9 players and the 9 players surrounding their manager, and they mounted it on a card and handed it out not only to fans but to opposing teams in a act that was believed to try to intimidate the opposing teams. And it worked. They went undefeated that season. They continued to dominate for quite a few years after, but in 1871, when a pro league was formed, the Brooklyn Atlantics did not join the team. All their best players left the team to go pro, And the next year when they decided that they wanted to go pro as well, they wanted to form a team, they didn't have any good players, and they mounted quite a few losing seasons in a row. And then in 1876, when the National League was formed, the Atlantics were not invited to be part of that league. So this card is, at the time, in 2013, believed to be the oldest. And Troy Thibodeau of Saco River Auction Company did some research, and initially he announced that it was a one of two. There was one other known card. The photograph was taken by Charles Williamson, and when Charles Williamson in the late 1800s went to file a copyright claim, the Library of Congress actually took possession of the card, and they have ever since owned that card themselves. They have had it. The Library of Congress's book, Baseball Americana, calls it the earliest dated baseball card. So it is the first baseball card at the time known to exist. But then, in their research, Saco River Auction Co. discovered that it was actually, this one from Maine was printed from a different negative than the one that the Library of Congress had. So they're calling it a one of one. So a one of one, 130 years before one of ones was a thing, but still very, very cool. They sent it off to SGC, who authenticated it. Pretty awesome here. And they hoped that it would get $500,000. It actually sold for $80,000 to the buyer, plus another $12,000 to the auction house. So the buyer, I should say this, $80,000 to the seller. The buyer paid a total of $92,000 for it. And I actually know who the buyer is. It's somebody named Jason LeBlanc, a financial consultant in Massachusetts, who bought it as an investment to help his son, who had some medical challenges. And he planned to just hang on to it in a safe deposit box, although he said he was open to somebody paying him 2 to 3 times what it was worth right away, or what he paid for it right away. No word that I could find on it selling again after that. It might still be in Jason's safe deposit box. But yeah, really cool story. Second part of this story, though, will give you an even earlier baseball card known to exist that was discovered after this one. I'll be back next week. Make sure you're subscribed, because this one will be next Friday for the next Attic Find Friday. Got a busy day tomorrow, so I don't know if I'll do another video. I have a video from a subscriber that I'm working on, but I'm up on my roof tomorrow, hopefully trying to repair some rot, and then I'll have my regular weekly Clearing the Bases on Sunday. So thanks very much for watching. Hope you guys have a great weekend.